3 tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Cannell. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 tailgate. Here we go on a Monday. We've got some thoughts from the NFL Draft Combine where some of our favorite college football stars either met, exceeded, or fell short of expectations. Also, paired with NFL draft season and the beginning of spring practice, we're going to sort of work our way around the field with a little segment that we're going to call Next Man Up. Today, we'll be talking about wide receivers. So, as we are looking at Rome Odunze and Xavier Worthy and other wide receivers that are really getting headlines from the NFL draft, who are some of those names across the entire sport that are coming up behind those outgoing stars that you need to know? So a little bit later on, we'll give you some of our favorite wide receivers, the ones we're excited to see in Next Man Up. But we begin with more continued fallout from the discussions and debates around more college football playoff expansion. That's right. If you're just tuning in, we are going to start a 12-team format in 2024, but we're already talking about an expansion to 14 teams. Tom, Danny, and I laughed about socializing plans. Well, I'll tell you what got things real social was Thursday night when we started to get even more details from these discussions, including the fact that in the 14-team format with 3 automatic bids for the Big Ten, 3 automatic bids for the SEC, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, 1 for the Group of 5, and 3 at-larges. Well, here's another little wrinkle. Conference champions from the SEC and the Big Ten get the fast pass with the first buys. So in a 14-team bracket, imagine it like, the 15 or 16 seed is just buy, unless it's Fairleigh Dickinson and you're Purdue, but you know how that goes. So we would be sending our SEC and Big Ten champion directly into the quarterfinals, regardless of where they were ranking, if they were those champions. But we'd love to let you get first word on this in terms of the more we find out and the more we're trying to understand what the future of the playoff is going to look like. Do you think that this is this is the end? Like, are we being socialized? Are we being prepared for a 14-team bracket with these kinds of outlines?
I love the use of the word socialize. I'm just going to start to kind of like, I'm going to socialize the idea. I'm going to play golf 3 days this week to my wife and see how that goes over.
Yes.
So the only real mistakes we can make when analyzing this sport are failing to do so through the lens of a business, right? Let's look at this from a business perspective to try to make sense of it. Why would the SEC and Big Ten push for this? They either really want it or they want something in exchange for not pushing this through. I think the reason why you do it is because like the SEC and I think the Big Ten make pretty good money on their championship games, whereas nobody really gives a damn about the ACCs or the Big 12s. And they still make money off it for sure. It's in the deal. But if you're the SEC, that's actually an event that I think you don't want to give up. And this is something that you had to anticipate when you were at 12. Now at 12, you were largely fine for it. It was still going to matter. If you go to 14, doesn't really matter nearly as much unless you do the 2 buys as they're doing here. Otherwise, you would just go straight to 16 because you'd play the same number of rounds. It wouldn't extend the calendar and you'd make more money overall. So for me, I look at this and I say, okay, this is the SEC and the Big Ten saying, hey, we want our championship games to still have a lot of meaning, which again, if you go to 14, there's a chance they wouldn't unless you have the automatic buys. Or maybe you pay us more guaranteed money overall and we kind of forget about this. I don't know exactly what they'll do, but clearly it's about money for the Big Ten and the SEC. They want more and more and more, and this is one way for them to get more or at least not give up more with their championship games losing value.
I'll go. Tom has his eyes rolling. I can already tell he's got just a zinger coming our way. The first round, when we talked about the model, the 3-3-2-2
hike
model.
33-23-1-1 hike.
I thought it was one where it's kind of like we talked about before. Like, if you know you're going to get screwed, if you're the ACC and the Big 12, at least know what it looks like and get a little bit better than the 5-7 model where they're going to be pushing for 3, 4, and potentially 5 teams, and you could get left with one. And I thought for sure the Big 12, it was a great deal for them, guaranteeing 2. I thought for the ACC, it's probably looking out further past the FSU potential exit and Clemson exit. Guaranteed 2 is a huge win for them. But then all of a sudden, like, so I felt like everybody's kind of happy where you are. But now, and like you're like ready to sign on the deal. But now that the SEC and Big Ten are pushing for the first game, first bye for the top 2 conference, for the top 2 spots, that's the point I think you have to push back and say, well, hold on a second, not so fast. What if because you can envision a scenario where there's a 9-3 SEC or Big Ten champ, and there's an undefeated Clemson, or there's an undefeated Arizona. Pick your team from the Big 12 or ACC. Mm-hmm. You're thinking, hold on a second. We went through a gauntlet as well. We were undefeated. We deserve that first round bye, where you've got to push back on this one. I don't know if they do, but I think the optics of that would look really bad and kind of carry over some of the favoritism we've seen in the 4-team model like we did just past year.
First of all, an undefeated ACC team should just be happy it got into the playoff, Danny. Like, come on.
That's right.
It's stupid because the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get those buys 90% of the time anyway.
Right.
So the fact that they're like trying to get it, like Bud was saying, the fact that they're trying to get it to be guaranteed is clearly a negotiating tactic for whatever they want, whether it's to keep the big, the conference championships viable, more money, more AQ spots, whatever the hell they're going for. It's just, it's a negotiating position. And to me, nothing says a playoff to determine the true champion than negotiating positions, because that's what this has truly always been about, trying to find who the best team is by negotiating. This is what you guys wanted, so just revel in it, enjoy it, love it.
15 of the 20 top 2 spots in the 10 years of the college football playoff, 15 of the 20 when you throw in Oklahoma to the SEC and Oregon to the Big Ten, they were occupied by schools that are going to be in 2024 in the SEC and the Big Ten. The only exception was Clemson running hot. And given the way college football has changed, like, is that something that's going to be sustainable moving forward? Not to mention, Clemson's own position here. I found something as I was digging that was interesting, and it is a complete distrust for the selection committee, because what this is doing is neutering the selection committee. If the Big Ten is responsible for figuring out how to get its, 3 bids figured out, and the SEC is going to get its 3 bids figured out, all the way down the line, you are limiting the amount of decisions. There's even the Notre Dame.
Thank goodness. This is great news. Yeah. This is the best news I've heard. That's why I'm cheering you on.
Okay, so like Notre Dame then even has its own automatic qualifier where if it's in the top 14,
it's in.
Then it's automatically in. So you're building out a system essentially where the committee, I guess we could have seeding decisions that need to be made, but the who's in, who's out decisions, there were leaders.
Seeding will be based on total revenue. How much money did you make this year? Oh, more money, the higher seed.
There were leaders that were worried about a 9-3 Big Ten or SEC team having to get compared to a 10-2 team from the Big 12, and didn't want to put that decision in the hands of the selection committee. And so you're just stripping away all the power and you're setting it up. And I've got a lot of questions about how you determine your 3 teams that you're going to go. That could get a little complicated. Like if you just go by conference record, does non-conference even matter anymore? Like trying to figure out all those things could get a little bit interesting. But that was my biggest takeaway as I was like, well, what's the real thinking behind this? And I had not uncovered that even at the administrative level, there's just a lot of distrust for the selection committee and the selection process, and that all of these automatic qualifiers is basically limiting their ability to make any kind of subjective or objective decisions.
I wonder where that would have come from.
Yes, thank you.
Who's to say? A couple more things on this. If the Big Ten and or SEC or some combination thereof want to push away, one of the ways they can do it is by making it look like they were being reasonable and all of the others rejected their position. So we were left with no choice. So throwing things out like this that the other administrators are likely to say, that's crazy, no way, is one way to accomplish that. To sort of like make you guys look like you're not quite the bad guys that you are. Another thing, there is no way that they can negotiate this with the anticipation that Florida State is leaving the ACC, which I fully expect them to do, and fast. But if you're a smart negotiator, you try to get as much as you can now. And then if you're the SEC, you're like, hey, ACC, I'm taking one of those auto bids back. You guys are no longer a 2 auto bid league when FSU leaves. The ACC also cannot negotiate from sort of a predetermined standpoint that FSU is leaving, because they're actually fighting in court to make sure that they don't, or try to make sure they don't. So they can't be like, yeah, it's cool, they're leaving, so we'll take these 2 auto bids, lock us in for a long time, so where nobody can change this type thing. That's just not going to happen. If you're the ACC, also, Florida State is alleging that you are a poor steward of the league's prestige and you don't look out for its members. If you sign this and you agree to this, if you're Jim Phillips, you're basically admitting that your conference is inferior, which it is. But you don't want to really like admit that on paper, because it makes you look bad. You've not stewarded the conference well. Kind of a tough spot there.
When Florida State argues that you're not looking out for the ACC, they just mean Florida State, right?
Well, how about all the other teams? Like, for instance, how poor of a deal is this by Jim Phillips to agree to this if your conference has 3 teams that have won a national championship in the last quarter century? The Big 12 has 0 and really not even come close, okay? So
I know, but my point is Florida State's not suing to get Boston College out of the ACC. Florida State's suing to get Florida State out of the ACC. So when they say you're not stewarding the ACC, they mean you're not doing the best for us.
And Clemson and Miami and the teams that actually give a shit and spend some money on football.
Maybe.
Not all the 7 or 8 leechers.
Maybe not.
No, they're suing to get out and clearly looking out for themselves, but they're pointing out how bad the steward they've been for all of them to make their point.
Which is pretty.
No, you're doing what you do when you're trying to make a case in a court.
Yeah. I don't think it's the responsibility of the conference to that part of that argument is, I'm like, okay, you're a lawyer, you're trying to win a case.
Whoa. You don't think the ACC
it's a huge part of it?
I don't think
it's absolutely a huge part of it.
Yeah. If Jim Phillips agrees to a deal, that
you notice where the line's drawn between the 4 of us and who thinks it's a big
smart
part of it
ones and the dumb ones, right there in the middle, right there across.
If Jim Phillips agrees to a deal where the ACC gets the same number of automatic qualifiers as the Big 12, where he has 3 teams that have won a national title in the last quarter century, okay, basically, like just take the 85 scholarship era and on. Who's won it? Who hasn't? The ACC's got a bunch. The current Big 12 structure has 0, and nobody has even really come close. Like, that's really poor negotiating by Jim Phillips. Why would you agree to that? The Big 12 has no national title contenders. You have.
If I'm holding a gun to your head and I'm telling you to do this and you do it, is that bad negotiating on your part?
Why is there a gun to your head?
Because the ACC might be gone in 2 years, bud. Florida State is literally threatening to leave it, which would destabilize the entire league. Jim Phillips is taking 2 auto bids because that's really the only deal he has available to him. The SEC and the Big Ten can go tell him to screw himself. We're just going to take Florida State Clemson anyway. We don't need you.
And this is why he's in a bad position. This is why he's in a bad position, right? Well, because if he agrees to this terrible deal, he looks really bad. Florida State's case looks better.
Florida State's case does look better. Agreed.
Right.
But Florida State's not. But my point is Florida State is doing this for Florida State. They're not doing it for the ACC. They've never given a damn about the ACC.
I don't think anybody said that. I don't think anybody said that.
Bud said that their argument in court is that Jim Phillips isn't being a good steward for the conference, as if this is his fault.
No, but how many teams in the conference actually matter for the college football playoff? 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So by stewarding the conference,
Big Ten matter for the college
football playoff purposes. If you steward the conference, you're only really concerned about the teams that are potentially going to make the playoff. When Greg Sankey is stewarding the SEC for the college football playoff, he's not stewarding Mississippi State, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, like the teams that'll never ever sniff it, right? He's stewarding the teams that can actually make it.
Oh, wait, so we're expanding the playoff to give those teams hope of making it, except they'll never make it. But which argument are you on? Which one are you like? When it's arguing for Florida State, it's those teams have no chance. When it's arguing for expansion of the playoff, it's we have to give these teams a chance. Which one is it?
Tom, fans are really, really gullible. They'll believe their team has a chance. I make my living in this.
I'm not as gullible. So when you tell me that Florida State's doing this for the sake of the ACC, I'm not buying it.
Tom, you're behind the curtain. You understand what this is. A lot of fans don't get it.
No, but you know what I do
So we should keep them hidden behind the curtain or tell them the truth?
We tell them the truth all the time on the show.
Counting
You're not
national
telling the truth
championships
right
as your
now.
dividing line is
Yes, we are.
convenient. Counting national championships is convenient. I mean, the
Okay,
idea
teams
the
that
idea
recruited
the
anywhere close to a
ACC
national title level. Big 12, 0. Nobody even close.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that counting Miami is like very conveniently grabbing them in for quarter century because that is not a group that has competed at even a top 10 level for a long time.
Teams that have ever shown the ability to have a national title level roster. ACC
But not
3,
in the
Big
modern
12
era.
at 0.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
I mean, not even close.
I mean, the reason we have a playoff is because Oklahoma State got left out. You can make that argument. So the Big 12 had kind of an impact on us having the playoff.
Yeah, whenever the Knoll boys pay up whatever they need to pay up, there will be an answer to this argument, and they'll buy their rights back, and they'll leave the ACC, and then we can decide winners and losers then. But I don't think that the Jim Phillips ACC relationship is a primary driver because Jim Phillips is a small voice in the room that is making big decisions. And there's a lot of reasons. He inherited a difficult situation, and he's doing the best he can, and it's a bad position. There is not a lot of leverage that he's got in any conversation that he's working with right now. But I do think that it's like not the driving storyline. The driving storyline is the SEC and the Big Ten and aligning everything so they have as many options as possible to make as much revenue as possible and control as much as possible about college football's future.
You know how you know the Big Ten and SEC are really, really tight? They're both getting the same number of auto bids, even though the SEC is way better than the Big Ten as far as at the top. That's how you know they're working in concert on this thing.
Because you could make the argument that if you're going to use the Bud,
if you're doing it in an equitable way, I think you would go SEC 5, Big Ten 3, ACC 2, Group of 5 1, Big 12 1.
Don't give Sankey any ideas.
Jeez, Greg Sankey, big fan of the Cover 3 podcast.
I mean, if we really wanted to split it just so like the way teams recruit, the ability to get national title level talent.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really G5-0, Big 12-0.
So that way we could just eliminate all the results, and we could just do who had the highest class in the 24/7 composite.
February national titles.
Hey, I mean, don't even play the games. You know,
you actually can't. Well, you can't pick the specific team, but you can pick the teams that can't win it pretty easy.
Yeah, that is true. We'll be continuing to follow this as they're going to meet again this week. I was speaking to somebody on the phone on Friday. They're like, hey, I mean, it could happen today. Of course, it didn't, but they are trying to get this done in the next couple of weeks so that they can solidify the television deal, figure out revenue distribution. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up landing on and what it means for the different conferences moving forward. Coming up on the other side, over the weekend in Indianapolis, we saw some of our favorite stars showing out for the NFL Draft Combine. Some of our big takeaways from the weekend. Next.
Who's in? Who's out? Let the madness begin. The NCAA Men's Basketball Championship Selection Show on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast as we get to, put on our NFL draft hat because who knows these guys better than us. Tom, we got a lot of different threads to pull on right here, whether it be position-wise or, met expectations, did not meet expectations. To you, what was one of the big headlines or sticking points coming out of watching all the action from the Combine?
I wouldn't be shocked if 24 of the 32 first-round picks are quarterbacks, receivers, and offensive tackles. Because that was very much on display at the Combine this year in that quarterbacks are quarterbacks, so they're always going to be very highly coveted, but wide receivers and offensive tackles are just an incredibly deep class on both sides. And you saw it at the Combine, everybody did good. I mean, and a lot of and you got to think too, a lot of dudes sat out a lot of the drills. You know what I mean? Malik Neighbors didn't do anything while he was there. Jaden Daniels didn't do anything while he was there. And still, you had all these dudes. I don't know how many of our listeners or viewers have ever checked out the relative athletic score, the RAS scores, but all these dudes are scoring 9.5 or better, which is very, very good. It's on a scale of 10. So to see those performances was really, really interesting. But at the same time, like I have thoughts about different positions, and I guess we can break it down position by position if you want, but just it's important when you watch the combine to understand that while it's a really good display of athleticism and talent and ability, it's, it's still just a bunch of dudes running around in tights for the most part. Like watching them play football is always going to be far more instructive than watching them run a 40-yard dash. So like Xavier Worthy got a lot of attention this week because he set the combine record. He ran a 4.2 140, which, oh my God, that is really, really fast. Nobody talks about how he didn't run any of the drills that actually involved catching a football. So he leaves the combine and everybody knows he's really fast. They don't know the concerns about Xavier Worthy. So it's one of those things where you have to keep all of that in mind. But I do think that, yeah, like Amarius Mims is a freak. We knew that. The only question about Mims will be the lack of experience and the fact that he's been banged up a lot because, he sat on the bench for a while at Georgia because they had a ton of awesome dudes on their offensive line. And then he was dealing with ankle injuries last year. And also, I think he had some sort of hamstring issue after running the 40. So like he completed the drills. But again, that's another thing where it's like, can't even get through the combine without kind of, a soft tissue type of deal. So that's a problem. I thought Joe Alt did really well. Like, he is still my number one tackle in the class. But I mean, there's a lot of guys that just
6'8" and 5/8.
Yes.
It is so rare for a guy to be that much bigger than his last verified high school measurement. Almost always it's the same, or the school lists him as, like Texas listed Worthy at 6'1" and he came in at 5'11".
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. 6'8" and that's huge.
So,
What's his name's wingspan was 86 inches.
Oh, what's his name? Mims had 36 and a quarter arm.
You could just stand like this at the line of scrimmage and all right, go. Try to get around me.
I remember at Under Armour check-in, they get their gear to come in and do the little media car wash thing. Mims in high school. There's some guys that go through there and you're just like, man, God has blessed you genetically in a very special way, and I really hope that you stay healthy for 3 years because that's all you're going to need in college because of the rule to just get out and go be a millionaire. There's certain guys whoa, that is not a, and we even amongst the best kids in the entire country, there's some oh, okay, you won the puberty lottery, the puberty Powerball. Absolutely.
So, can we stick with linemen? Because Tom, you're right. I had Alt, I had Fashanu, I had Fuaga.
Fuaga tested a lot better than I thought he was going to, by the way.
Kingsley, not surprising.
Yeah. Fuaga, when I watched him, it was always to me about power. Because, he is a very, very strong guy, and he's very, very violent when he plays. I did not expect him to be that smooth moving. So he might end up, honestly, depending on what the Chargers do with their pick, he might end up being the first tackle taken.
Well, from Washington, Fontenot, right?
Yes.
That was pretty impressive along the way. How do we look at this? Because Tom, I like the way that you put that, because I had to run it through my head. 24 to 32. You would not be surprised if they're wide receivers, offensive linemen, or quarterbacks. So, Danny, just sticking at the offensive linemen, what were some of the big takeaways from you? Have you changed how you sort of tier them out or look at that group?
No, I thought they were strong coming in. I thought it was a heavy, OL wide receiver class, just like Tom's talking about. I think we knew about the wide receivers. I think the eye-popping thing was the tackles, the size, the speed, the combo of athleticism. I think because, again, we knew about the receivers. I think we had a feeling about the offensive linemen and the tackles that kind of really shined a light on them this weekend, people going, wow, this is a deep group. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, too. The number that's going to be interesting is how many quarterbacks go in the first round. I was bummed the top three didn't throw. I get it. And then from you want to keep stay on wide receivers, tackles?
No, wait, wherever you want to go.
Well, I was just going to say, I thought there was two guys that kind of went in separate directions. Penix wasn't a surprise to us, I don't think, because we've known how well he could throw the football. It's great to see him out there flinging. I thought he had the best performance out of all the quarterbacks, just the ease with which it comes off. It just flick of the wrist and it goes. The one was a little bit surprising was Spencer Rattler, who, had some post-regular season momentum, runs a 4.95 in the 40, which is not great. I think that was probably my goal. I didn't run at the combine, but I ran a 4.8, and I'm slow. I was genuinely shocked that he was that slow. At the
A wind aided shout out to the track, you know.
oh yeah, Mike Long track for sure. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised by that.
Rattler is pretty much all arm. Like he's not a real athletic prospect, and he's not the biggest guy. He's not tiny, but he like physically he's not an imposing, pocket style passer, and he's not athletic. So Slovis running the 4.5 surprised me. He didn't run a whole
Surprised
lot.
everybody.
Yeah, that I didn't know that he had wheels like that. I bet you that surprises BYU fans as well. I thought Cooper Beebe was pretty impressive for him to rip off the times that he did. Man, tight ends had a rough weekend overall. Like tight end is I was listening to Tej Seth the other day. I think he's worked in the NFL and in college, and he was saying like tight end is the position where the testing metrics translate the most. And all of your stud tight ends in the NFL were absolute freakazoids as testers. So the tight ends just had a pretty bad weekend overall in terms like there's good ones out there. I get it, but not guys that you think are big time impact guys, with the exception of Bowers. So it's like Bowers,
and he didn't do anything.
Are we gonna have a tight end in the second round?
I don't know.
You might. I mean, this is not a very good tight end crop. It's not impressive. And
that's the thing. Bowers could slip in the first, not because of the talent, just because about the need.
I mean, look, Johnny Wilson measuring 6'6.5", 230, and he ran 4.53. Is like, would you rather have him or would you rather have the second best tight end out there? I think I'd probably rather have. And I know Wilson's not a tight end; he wants to be paid as a receiver, but I think I know what I would do there. Brian Thomas. That dude made himself some money to be 220, whatever he was, and to run 4.3. Was it 4.33, 4.35?
4.33. Yeah, something like that.
That receiver group is nasty, and those tight ends just cost himself some money.
Yeah, the Brian Thomas thing was so interesting to me because we had sort of painted him as the less athletic. Like it's like Malik Neighbors is your burner, Brian Thomas is your 50-50, winner. And then he's like, oh, no, I'm still also just as athletic and as anybody else in this draft class.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Thomas is going to be a first-round pick, and he's been projected as a first-round pick for a while. So it's not that big of a shock. I think the problem with Thomas, what concerns people about him, is that in that offense, he's not running a whole lot of routes. They're not asking him to run many routes. It's mostly like vertical routes. But the fact is he runs the routes he does run really well, which suggests that he'll be able to learn the other routes pretty easily if you ask him to at the next level. I think because honestly, LSU just does a really good job developing wide receivers. They're all very athletically freaky, but they're also very technical, and they run routes really well, and they do some crazy stuff when you watch it on tape. So I wasn't shocked by Brian Thomas overall. I was a little surprised to see that the 40 was as quick as it was, but it's not like I ever thought he was slow. But I think going back to the tight ends, I thought Theo Johnson tested really well, but Theo Johnson is still the Penn State tight end. Penn State keeps continuing to put out athletic freaks, but there's still a lot of development as far as his skills of playing the position have to go. But to Bud's point, when the most impressive thing you see a tight end do during any of the drills was just Tip Ryman's sled blocking thing, that was the most impressive thing I saw any of them do. That's not a great indicator of tight end talent, especially with what you've seen at that position in recent years. And again, it hurts that Brock Bowers didn't run any of the drills, but I think by not running any of the drills, I think that was all Brock Bowers had to do, is no, go ahead and watch these guys.
Totally. The one thing I'll say on Brian Thomas, and I went back and watched his clips over the weekend because of what he ran. His biggest games were against the absolute worst defenses. And of course, everybody's going to play better against bad defenses, but there is a bit of a hot and cold thing here. So Georgia State, really bad defense. Florida, one of the worst defenses in college football. Army, horrendous defense, right? Ole Miss, really bad defense this year. Arkansas, again, terrible defense. Florida State, he had the 80-yarder against the true freshman at the end, but he did have 70 yards before that. So that's against one of the better defenses out there. So that's probably his best performance against a quote unquote real defense. But there were games where he didn't have a lot, right? Didn't do anything against Alabama. Missouri, he had 66 yards, which they won the game. They scored 1 million points. So clearly Missouri was covering him, or at least devoting some attention to him. But I don't know. I would like to see him against some better DBs to see how he does, I guess.
Not to
You're kinda
pour
wrong.
salt in a wound, but if I was to take this over to the defensive side of the ball, we got Blue Chicken in the tailgate. Did Fisk, meaning Braden
Yes.
Fisk, make money despite having alligator arms? And I thought Jared Verse had a good performance. I saw Kalen DeLoach burning it up. And again, not to pour salt in the wound, but it did make me wish that Florida State had gotten a chance in the college football playoff because the defense was loaded with dudes.
I think Fisk's testing really helped him out quite a bit. Like everybody, you can look at the guy and see his arms aren't long. Now, I don't know if we thought they were going to be that short, but the testing really was good. I think he's got a shot to go in the second round potentially.
He might be the second or third interior defensive lineman taken. Like, it's like the tape is
It's
good.
not a good interior D line class, right, compared to normal, but still
Not great. No,
it's still good.
Yeah, like his tape is good. And then you saw him perform at the combine. It was like, oh, it's like, yeah, the arms are short, but if he's that quick, I mean, the offensive lineman has to get his arms on him. And you look at that kind of speed and explosiveness, and it's like, oh, okay, well, shit. But I will go because I thought Florida State overall had a very good combine. Like some guys were, but I can just let me unload the clip here position by position.
Okay.
Running back, there's still no clear number one in this class. Like you've seen in the last few years, like you've had guys like Bijan and Jameer go in the first round. You had Travis Etienne going in the first round a couple years. Nobody's going to be taken in the first round this year. There just isn't that guy in this class. But I do think Trey Benson was very impressive at the combine, and he's also got good tape. So I think he could end up being the first running back taken. Shout out to Isaac Guerendo from Louisville, who had a phenomenal combine. Like he is not big enough to where he's going to get taken as a feature back, but he's got some Isaiah Pacheco to him. I could see him getting taken and being like a 15 touch kind of a game kind of guy for somebody. The wide receiver class overall, we've talked about a lot, but it restored, like it was proof. It was proof of what I've thought all along on Roma Dunze. It was proof of what I thought all along about big bad lad McConkey. And also I was very happy to see South Carolina's Xavier Legette do really well in the testing because he really does pop on tape. Like he is not a finished product by far. He's got a lot of stuff he has to learn, but just the clay, that was very, very impressive. I think he could go earlier than a lot of people expected. Talked about the tackles. As far as the interior offensive lineman, Wisconsin's Tanner Bortolini, my God. Like, dude, where the hell did that come from? I don't know if he's going to be a center in the league or if they're going to put him at guard, but that dude was an athletic freak. I mentioned on Thursday's show I was really interested in watching Trevor Keegan from Michigan, their left guard, who did very well in the Alabama game in the Rose Bowl. I thought he did well in the drills. From what I saw at the edge, kind of confirmed to me of why I would take Chop Robinson over every other edge player in this class, just because I don't think this is a very good edge class. And I think a lot of the scores that you saw from the combine this week proved it. It's not to say like Dallas Turner and Jared Verse and these guys aren't going to be good or Lei Tulatu. It's that if you look at those RAS scores that I mentioned since 2020, so the last 5 draft classes, only Chop Robinson and Texas Tech's Miles Cole in this class finished in the top 20 in RAS scores. And that's why I would go with Chop, because he doesn't have that production yet, but just athletically, I feel like the best is still yet to come. The problem I have with Chop is I don't know if he's ever going to be big enough or good enough in the run game. He could just end up being a pass rush specialist, but I think he could be a very good one, and those are very important. Talked about Fiske. I thought he was great. I thought he could play himself into being the second, maybe after Byron Murphy, defensive tackle taken. I mentioned Rukaroro on Thursday's show. I thought he tested very well and looked good in the drills. I was disappointed by Alabama's Justin Eboigbe. I didn't think he did very well at all, and I think he looks better on tape than he did at the combine, so I'm not going to like completely dismiss him, but there was a surprising performance for me. Linebacker, NC State's Peyton Wilson, man. The only thing there is health. And then
he's the defensive Michael Penix.
Yeah, he's just
like that Louisville game he had was insane.
Yeah, he's just everywhere all the time. And you watched him in the drills and you're like, man. And then finally, I just want to say to the former Illini great, my buddy Rashard Mendenhall, he was watching that combine this week and he was shaking. He was scared. Because I don't know if you noticed this, but between you got running back Dylan Lobb, wide receiver Ladd McConkey, Ricky Pearsall, Luke McCaffrey. We talked about Braden Fisk at defensive tackle, Peyton Wilson at linebacker, Cooper DeJean at corner, Cole Bishop at safety.
Watch out.
Just saying, watch out for the white guys. We got some athletes on the come up. This team's going to get better. Spread is getting smaller. We're coming.
on running backs, I think some of these guys, like if you want to answer, like were these guys a product of their offensive line? Audric Estime, Bucky Irving, Dylan Johnson. I think their speed score, which is sort of the measure of like how fast you run relative to how big you are, suggests that, yeah, maybe it was the Irish offensive line and not Estime, right? Maybe it was the Washington offensive line. And like they're good backs. Like they're going to play in the league. But whereas on the flip side, some of these guys who put up way more impressive speed scores who either had offensive lines that are either, hurt, sucked, or both. Isaac Garendo, like almost the opposite of the speed scale of Jawar Jordan. Like Jawar Jordan had the worst speed score of all the backs. Garendo had the best. They played behind in the same offensive line. Marshawn Lloyd, USC was kind of a mess this year. Trey Benson, same thing, right? I thought Tennessee's offensive line dropped off quite a bit this year for Wright. And then Kamani Vidal, yes. Troy had like a legit NFL running back on their roster. And that the fact that he didn't portal last year was pretty that was good for them for sure.
Isaac Garendo spent 2 full seasons stuck behind Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi at Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Now, given how good Allen was, Ches Malusi was a competent college running back. It's not. I can't criticize it a ton, but man, you had something special there in Madison in that running back room, and it wasn't until like you mentioned, Bud. Not even the top. I mean, Jawar Jordan was the one who was like leading the conference in rushing through most of the season. Isaac Garendo just able to come in and drop game-changing plays in sort of spot duty. An interesting player to watch throughout his college career for sure. Danny, anywhere you want to go? Yeah, let's go.
Somebody chimed in the chat and said, "Do I still have my Keon Coleman is going to have a better career than Marvin Harrison Jr.?" I'm not backing down from that. Just because he referenced the 4.61, which I believe was the slowest of the receiver group. But he must not have watched the gauntlet drill, or when they were running routes, he had the second fastest miles per hour. That's what I would like to call a football player who has football speed. That's why I don't like, I get it too. Like we set a new record, but has anybody paid attention to John Ross and what he did, who had the previous record? I mean, if you go through the top 10 list, Chris Johnson was a stud. He was the second all-time fastest, but there's a laundry list of guys who ran in the 4.2s who never really did anything. And I'm not saying Xavier Worthy's not, I don't think he's going to be the next John Ross, but it's so much more than just the combine. That's why I don't love the combine. I get it from a viewer's perspective and it's fun. And like Joe Milton was another one who somebody asked, like, will somebody take a flyer on Joe Milton? Scouts fall for this too, right? I mean, he has a cannon and he showed it off there. And somebody will see that and be like, we can mold it. But it's so much more than that. I want to see the tape first. How did you play with pads on? And I still think Keon Coleman's going to be a stud at the next level.
Mm-hmm. Also, what did Marvin Harrison run?
Oh, yeah.
Because he didn't run at the combine, and it's been reported he's not going to run in his pro day. I have never seen a confirmed time for Marvin Harrison Jr. that is fast.
He's not a blazer.
Like, as a high school recruit, as a like remember how Ohio State under Urban used to do like that fake wall of 40s? It was like clearly fake. It's like, oh, you guys have 7 guys who would set the all-time record on your team in college. Cool. We don't know that he's actually track fast. In fact, I think I typically believe fast guys run fast, right? They want to show it off. Marvin Harrison Jr. Now I think he's fast enough. I would take him first with receiver pick, but and I don't know that he's actually track fast. So it's sort of an incomplete comparison if we're just judging Keon's 40 time, which was really disappointing. It looked like he didn't train very well for it. But to Danny's point, it was him and Troy Franklin they showed back to back. He was going like 5 mile an hour faster through the gauntlet drill than Franklin was, which we do see that. Like yesterday, I was at Under Armour Miami. These guys, some of these dudes, just you can tell like they're not comfortable going the drills full speed. Like Blake Corum ain't fast. Blake Corum had the best looking running back drills for my money. Like the cuts, everything is real fast. He's confident through it. So it is.
Some guys are some guys ran track competitively from a very young age, especially, in Texas. I know it's huge out there. Florida, I think it's competitive.
Keon was a basketball guy, so he would not have. Yeah.
Right. So you're just not used to coming out of a stance.
Like Illinois' Isaiah Williams ran like a 4.6 in the 40. But when you're saying, Danny, when they did the gauntlet drill, caught every pass, reached 19 miles an hour, which was the 5th highest speed. And that's while having to keep turning directions and make catches. And frankly, I would rather have a guy who can quickly turn his head around and catch a ball while running full speed than a guy who can just run really fast without playing football.
I think Jonathan Brooks is a really good player, but man, it was illuminating when you start to go back and look at why opponents played Texas with just safeties all the way back at the line of scrimmage. When you got Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell to worry about, a lot of space opened up there for Texas's run game and the short pass game.
Dropping rainbows in between.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Texas had themselves quite an offense last year. Any other thoughts? Let's see. We got the Florida State guys.
Jared Verse made the right decision to come back to school, pick up what I think we all can believe is probably high 6 figures, low 7 figures to come back for a year. To Tom's point about like this being a pretty poor edge draft, like I think he made the right decision to come back. Likely go back half of the first round. We think.
I think at the latest, yeah.
Did they all make the right decision to sit out the Orange Bowl and get ready for the Senior Bowl and Combine where they crushed it?
I mean, anybody who was even slightly hurt and like needed to get like a minor surgery or to like not tweak it again and start your training, probably so. Like Fisk was hurt. He actually tried to give it a go that week of practice and then shut it down.
Yeah, I will say it is interesting how if you look at going through the RAS scores, which are just measurements of athleticism. The Michigan players, the Washington players, the Florida State players all did really well. You know whose teams didn't have the greatest overall RAS scores compared to usual? Georgia and Alabama. It's almost like the results on the field were somewhat indicative of the players on the field.
Outside of Bowers and Mims, who were you really looking for from Georgia? Because that's part of the Georgia being number one going into 2024.
Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard. I wanted to see them do more. They didn't do much.
I didn't think Bullard would be very fast.
No. Tyke Smith was slower than I thought, too.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, Bowers goes top 10? I got a bet with Dusty on that one. I said
he could. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if he doesn't go in the top 6 or 7, he might fall down to 19. I don't know. It's really going to depend on what happens and how desperate these people are to get QBs.
Very interesting. Of course, we will next month, as we get closer to the draft, do a little bit more of our own Cover 3 style NFL draft preview and analysis after the fact. But our job is to get you ready for the next wave of stars. So coming up on the other side, our Next Man Up series takes a look at the wide receivers. A lot of them are going to be going in the NFL draft. What are some of the names that you need to know for 2024? Next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast as we are coming out of the NFL Draft Combine weekend. A good time to start turn your attention to the stars that you need to know going into next season. Our thanks to the Cover 3 tailgate and the big old bag of mail, because we had a mailbag question on Thursday's episode about quarterbacks who fans should know. And as we started rattling through them and as we started putting our list together, all of a sudden we realized like this might be something that has great value to our friends in the Cover 3 family. So we want to get you tuned into the top wide receivers in the game. So, Tom, next man up, wide receivers. Who are some of the names that you think are going to emerge as some of the top ones in the game?
As far as emerging as a guy that maybe not as many people are familiar with because they had to play a more limited role on their offense last year because of guys ahead of them. Let's go back to LSU. They've got Brian Thomas. They've got Malik Neighbors. Both will be first-round picks. And they have another possible first-round pick who will be back in school next year named Kyron Lacey, who, when you watch, it's like, because I've been watching a lot of LSU tape for Jaden. I've been watching it for Thomas. I've been watching it for Malik. He pops like a whole hell of a lot. And he has, I don't know. There are some times where like he starts his route. He just hops on one leg. He'll take 3 or 4 hops and the defensive back looks confused as hell because he has absolutely no idea what route he's setting up, and then he just goes. And I think it's kind of brilliant because there really is no indicator of what route he's about to run, and it's just really fun to watch. That's something that stands out. But I think you go into that offense next year, Jaden Daniels will be gone. It's probably going to be Nussmeier, we think, winning that starting job.
Yeah.
So that offense is Denbrock's gone, Jaden's gone, Malik is gone, Brian Thomas is gone. That offense is still going to be fine.
I was thinking that for the purposes of this conversation, we all agree Emeka Egbuka is a household name, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you can make a real argument that in terms of household name, there's another one.
Because most households are not recruiting households.
Luther Burden is like
I thought I would have pushed back, said he might be already, but across the national landscape.
Landscape.
There is one. Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
I
had him on a separate column to discuss because what do we think we're going to get from him next year? And
I think he's a better receiver than a DB, honestly. But I don't know what the plan's going to be for him.
Do you know most of the draft projections for next year don't have him as a wide receiver? They have him as a DB.
Mm-hmm. I think that'll change.
I think most draft projections for next year are like straight garbage.
Yeah, they're just
I think the ones right now for this coming year are pretty good. It's not a reflection on the evaluators. I think it's a reflection on the business.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really make much money looking ahead to next year's draft right now. Like it's money making season for this draft right now because the consumers are NFL fans. Like I'm not trying to crap on these guys. Like I just don't think they're putting in the same amount of effort. Like it's the same thing in the recruiting industry. I guarantee you our 2027 rankings are going to change a whole heck of a lot by the time we get to 2027. Okay. We got to put some out now. It's basically the guys we've seen, we know about. They're going to change a whole lot. Early rankings are very not trustworthy.
You know who has started doing research on the 2025 class?
You.
This guy.
So if Shedeur Sanders is going to have a big year, a good enough season to boost an NFL draft stock, then he's going to need a lot from his wide receivers. And there's no wide receiver that is more gifted at the game of football than Travis Hunter. Having Travis Hunter, again, household name, and Danny, like you said, put him out to the side a little bit, but any outlook for the Buffs that is positive has to include him playing a lot of wide receivers and coming up with big catches, right?
I think so.
I've got Isaiah Bond, I think is going to be one of the top wide receivers in the entire country. You remember him for the 4th and a mile, gravedigger catch from Jalen Milroe in the Iron Bowl, but him over there with all those attempts and all those passes available in that Texas offense, I think is going to be huge. Evan Stewart, who's that? Oregon
from Texas A&M.
From Texas A&M. So we got a couple transfers in there. Isaiah Bond, Alabama to Texas. Evan Stewart, Texas A&M to Oregon. Bud, what's your read on Evan Stewart and yards after catch? And what's your read on his ability to take shorter passes and turn them into long pass plays?
Extremely good because he's also like one of the best soccer playing football players we've seen. He was like a legitimately good soccer player. So I think the footwork and the ability to make guys miss is pretty high.
What are some other names we want to make sure we get out here?
For me, I really like Georgia's Dylan Bell. I think he's going to emerge as a top guy for them. He was not a very highly rated recruit, I don't think, but he's kind of really come on. They use him in a lot of different ways, and I think he's very effective in a lot of different ways. I've seen a lot of people mention Kevin Concepcion at NC State. I think that is a very good call. He was a very, very impressive player last year. And then, Deion Burks, who transferred from Purdue to Oklahoma.
Yep.
Correct? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
you're
Deion
looking
Burks.
at like a Jackson Arnold, Deion Burks kind of combination where if you want to be excited about Oklahoma's pass game, you've got the young buck taking the reins and then also Purdue's best wide receiver and one of the better wide receivers in the Big Ten arriving and being able to help inject some life into that.
He just looks different on film. Go back and watch his speed against that Wisconsin team on that. Was it a Friday night game?
Yes, it was on Peacock.
That looked different. Danny, you want to go?
Sure. I had Alec Aomenor. I think that's how you say his last name.
Yeah.
Stanford dude who had to go. He's flying under the radar, but he was the one who dominated. He had almost 300 yards against Travis Hunter, who was trying to go
leading
both
receiver
ways.
for freshman in the country among true freshmen.
Was he the top? I actually
like
had
80% of it came in the one game.
yeah. I had Tetaroa McMillan, Arizona.
Yeah.
Monster year last season. 6'3", big receiver, feet and him staying together. That was a huge one. I had Torrey Horton, Colorado State, coming back, kind of flying under the radar. Will Shepard from Vandy. I'm partial to the taller guys. Some of these too, you just don't know how the season's going to go. You're kind of concerned about that one. And then I had Squirrel Wright from Tennessee. As guy, he's not a big guy, but I think with some quarterback stability, with Nico coming in, I think he could be somebody who benefits from that within the SEC.
I had a bunch of schools where I didn't know who's going to emerge. And I'm talking Penn State, Tennessee, Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas A&M, Utah, like where they've got Dorian Singer coming in there. Like, who knows? Hey, you want to talk about blast from the past? Micah Pittman's still in the league. Like, on his third or fourth stop after 3 or 4 season-ending injuries. Is he ever going to find help? I mean, for Nico, Brew McCoy is back, and we've been waiting on Brew McCoy to have a full season of health and production, for a long, long time. There's a couple, like, Bud, did you ever end up settling, when we were texting about this over the weekend, you said, I need to pick out my Clemson guy. Who do you think is going to be, who you would lock on to? Like Tyler Brown, who had a really good
I was thinking Tyler Brown. Like when healthy, all right, so there's a couple guys out there who they weren't crazy high volume for various reasons, but when they were healthy, like they were young guys who the team would try to force the ball to. So Tyler Brown of Clemson was one. I thought Eugene Wilson at UF, when he was healthy, he was really featured like early and often in game plans of big games. Like you could tell they were trying to force him the football, which matters a lot because Pearsall, who tested off the charts at the combine, is gone now for the Gators. I think Tom's Dylan Bell fits in this category as well. But Tyler Brown for Clemson would certainly be one there for me. I think Florida State belongs in that conversation of there's going to be a guy, we don't know who it is. Hakeem Williams was a very raw 5-star freshman who ended up playing like meaningful third down, like non-gadget play snaps in critical games. Like they were out of guys when Keon and Johnny got hurt against Duke. They're like, Keon next up, and they were throwing him like back shoulder fades on third down, and he was coming up with it. So maybe a guy to watch watch for there. I think he has some. Is that next
Malik Benson?
Malik Benson they did not have a real good like over the top speed guy because they had like Pokey Wilson in 22 who would hit like Oklahoma over the top stuff. But in 23, they didn't really have that because Destin Hill got hurt and some other guys got dinged up. I think Restrepo at Miami is going to catch a million balls. I don't know if he's a great NFL guy, but man, Cam Ward loves to target the slot. So I think he's, I say easily the favorite, but probably the early favorite to lead the ACC in receiving, in my opinion.
Catch like 80 balls.
Yeah.
I've got Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo as a top 8 quarterback wide receiver duo heading into the season.
I can see that.
Yeah. In terms of
statistically,
like production. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, in that what matters? Like, I'm not trying to do raw talent.
Winning is what matters, Chip.
Yeah, exactly. How important are you to yards and points that help your team win?
Carnell Tate for Ohio State.
Yes, he might
probably the next guy there. Aside from Igbuka.
I mean, we talk about Igbuka being the name everybody knows. I wouldn't be surprised if Carnell Tate's the best receiver on Ohio State next year.
Concur. Zach Branch, USC.
That's the.
He also fits in like the Eugene Wilson, like young guy, couldn't stay healthy. When he was healthy, they definitely tried to force feed him the ball type category.
All right. And they're going to have to force feed him the ball next year because
he's the closest thing we have to Tyreek Hill in the sport.
Zach Branch.
Yeah. He's not as thick, but speed wise and just that SYP speed, Zach Branch has it.
Who's quarterback for Oklahoma State?
Is Presley back still?
Yeah, Brendan Presley's back, and I think he's one of the best wide receivers in this group. But in terms of the overall pass attack, I don't know how much confidence. I don't know if we've got the other end of that quarterback tandem for me to put him up there in the top 10.
Get Brandon Whedon back there.
All 5 offensive linemen are 22 years or older, and they're all back.
Is Alan Bowman back?
Who's buying the beer? Everybody's buying.
Yeah, Alan Bowman's back.
Okay, so like between their offensive line and their quarterback, their average age is 29.
in the guest speakers that Oklahoma State's going to have this offseason, Gundy's going to have like a retirement speaker come in there. He's like, "Guys,
AARP.
have you considered your retirement?" Like everybody has a guest speaker series over the summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 G5 guys who I think could find some success at sort of like good P5 programs. Colin Lacey, who went to Louisville, and Eric McAllister, who went to TCU. Both those programs have a history of like feeding a number one receiver. If you think about it, like TCU threw the hell out of the ball to what's his name, who the Chargers took, Johnson, 2 years ago.
Last year, Quentin Johnston. Yeah,
Quentin Johnson, and then LSU, or excuse me, Louisville typically under Brom, they force feed like one guy constantly, and so that could be, we'll see, could be Colin Lacey for Louisville. Do you have Notre Dame as a team in your group of like somebody's probably going to emerge, but we're not totally sure who?
Yeah, Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison, Jaden Thomas, and Bo Collins with question marks beside every single one of them on my sheet.
I kind of think Faison, but I'm not 100% confident in that yet.
I don't know who's going to emerge from Alabama. You got Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, and Jeremy Bernard.
Ryan Williams.
Freshman. Let's go.
He's going to be a 17-year-old freshman, I believe.
Oh, can we keep? Oh, it's going to be the new Braylon Allen.
And then
17.
I went back to review it because I agree, Kyron Lacey, but I think CJ Daniels could have a big season for LSU as well.
Yeah.
That was a really productive wide receiver at Liberty. I'm kind of excited to see what happens. The Nussmeier buzz, the Buzzmeyer, like, has been rocking for 2 years since before Jaden first got the job. So now we get to see it. No questions, no quarterback battle. Let's see what happens with, again, Joe Sloan taking over there in Baton Rouge.
I got
Keandre Lambert-Smith, Julian Fleming. Who else are we gripping onto in that Penn State wide receiver room?
I don't know.
We are gripping onto Andy Kotelnicki scheming guys wide open.
We are gripping onto Penn State running the damn hell out of the ball next year more than anything.
You see Nick Singleton's viral squat?
Yeah.
Like 700 some, I don't know. It looked like 3,000 pounds. Does not look like a running back.
A couple more in the freshman mold. Jeremiah Smith. Just, there's never a guarantee that it's going to translate year one, but the way that he destroyed other corner recruits who like good staffs loved, it's like, oh, okay, that was like it wasn't a fair fight. So the only guy we really never saw him go up against was Ellis Robinson, who was the number one corner. Like I would like to have seen that for a 60-minute fight if IMG could have played Chaminade, because I talked to a guy about this yesterday. It's like, yeah, that would have been cool just to kind of gauge both of them in an actual game setting, but we never really got it. But he's one of the best receiver recruits we've ever seen. He's the highest rated one ever on 24/7 Sports. So definitely one to look out for. Jonte Cook as well at Texas is a guy I think we should be watching out for. Who was the dude who kept getting hurt at A&M with the toe injury? Noah Thomas?
I don't know.
I've got Jade Walker, Micah Tease, and Terry Bussey as my who's going to be there for Connor Wegman.
I had a little source at A&M telling me like they loved some Noah Thomas. I'm like 99% sure this is who. I'm trying to remember back to last year, but I'm pretty sure he had like a toe injury. But when he was in, they really liked him. This is tough, man, because like we have so many good players. I guess this is why we did the segment, right? So many good guys going to the NFL. But this is really kind of challenging.
Oh, Trey Harris.
Trey Harris at Ole Miss.
Yeah. Yep. They put out a viral video of claiming Jackson Dart and Trey Harris were one of the top quarterback wide receiver duos. You think that's a fair claim?
Yeah, production wise for sure. Trey Harris running that little route to the sideline, back shoulder, 75 times a game. That thing, nobody stopped it yet.
I think Micah Hudson will be pretty good and early for Texas Tech freshman. Just a real mature approach in how he runs his routes. I think a guy that just kind of gets it. So in that offense, I think he'll play pretty early and often. We already did Deion Burks. I'm trying to just go down my list, make sure I got all my check marks.
Yeah, I was the Deion Burks or Nick Anderson, and that's where I just think Burks is. I've been waiting. Nick Anderson we've always thought is pretty good, but I thought that Burks was like a plus value, above good at Purdue, and I think he'll be the same at Oklahoma.
Malik Elzy at Illinois.
Yes. What do we do with Marion Miller? Kind of emerged for Colorado late. They also brought in LeJontay Webster, who is
Wester. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
He has a different skill set than those guys, like how big and powerful he is.
That's the thing, because I'm not 100% sure what the offense is going to look like, because they got rid of Sean Lewis during the season last year to run a more pro-style offense with Pat Shurmur, but the offense didn't really look all that dissimilar to what they were doing under Lewis. So I don't know. We'll see. Are they coming out with 12 personnel next year? I have no idea.
Yeah. Elijah Surratt at Indiana, who came over from James Madison, could be like a low-key fantasy
Donovan
play.
McCulley, who Indiana has too, who entered the portal and came back. He's a big body guy. He's not really going to blow you up, but he's tough. He's tough to cover.
I had the leftover note from our assistant coaching carousel recap. I forgot to give Indiana flowers because they just took James Madison's staff. So, it worked. What seemed pretty good at in Harrisonburg. So if they can make it work in Bloomington, then that could end up being one of the big winners of the assistant coaching carousel, with Kurt Signetti keeping the band together for the most part.
Ryan in the chat brought this up, but he said Sarkisian does have this sort of like Miami Dolphins tiny receivers, fast as hell receiver type thing going, which I kind of don't hate for what Sark does with all these shot plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, it keeps the defense way off the line of scrimmage. And
they're faster this year than last year, right? Overall.
Mm-hmm. And you have two very good running backs who are going to have a lot of open space to run into.
It's great. It's a great way to build a roster. It's probably why we all think you're a top 5 team going into next season.
I've got a take for off air. We'll save it for later. I'll share it with you guys though.
50,000 subscribers, and Tom announces this take.
Tune in Wednesday.
Last one, Chris Lewis, Troy.
Okay.
He was a guy who was kind of blocked out under the old no double transfer rule unless you graduated. But now that's out the window. Go watch his tape against South Alabama.
Chris Lewis?
Chris Lewis, yeah. He was a Kentucky signee, and in the biggest games, he showed up pretty big.
This is fun. It's fun. Fun to get the names out. Fun to talk ball. Fun to get you ready for the 2024 season. That's right. The work begins right now. And all throughout the next several weeks, we will be pairing some of our NFL draft coverage with Next Man Up, letting you know the superstars that you need to know for college football headed into the spring and the fall. And we will be back on Wednesday. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernelli. You can follow him at BudElliott3. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See y'all.